The religious spend a lot of time getting a lot of things wrong, mostly because they spend a lot of time not paying the slightest bit of attention to reality. It's easier to just make believe than it is to do research or care about the facts, and nowhere is this more obvious than their interaction with the non-religious. It's funny how little they actually know about atheism and atheists, but they do pretend to be experts. But the only thing they're actually experts in is the art of self-delusion. I've had a couple of interesting, if not particularly productive discussions lately, and I thought I'd talk about them. These things come up all the time, and honestly, I don't know how the religious can continue to get all of this so completely wrong, especially after having it explained to them time and time and time again. But I suppose that's the real problem. They don't care that they're wrong. They don't care that their beliefs are not honest. It's why the religious spend so much time talking about atheists and virtually no time at all actually talking to atheists. So let's spend a couple of minutes exploring this problem. The biggest issue that I see, and the biggest one that I think a lot of theists have, especially on those very rare occasions where they will actually engage with an atheist, is that they assume that we're just like they are. They take their own biases and their own beliefs and pretend that we have those same biases and those same beliefs. In fact, a lot of theists seem entirely incapable of understanding that we're not just theists in disguise. They can't step back and examine anything from outside of their particular religious lens. They simply assume that everyone has the exact same kinds of beliefs that they do, and therefore they have to respond the exact same way that the religious do. And this is simply not true. See, believe it or not, atheists, by and large at least, do not have beliefs about gods. We simply reject claims made about gods because they lack any corroboratory evidence to support them. We only care about the evidence. We care about the facts, and the claims made about gods, well, they simply don't stand up to the damning light of reason. But the religious, again by and large, aren't concerned with the facts. They aren't concerned with the evidence. They are simply concerned with the emotional impact that holding these beliefs gives them. So they assume, wrongly, that atheists are exactly the same way. Like I said, they talk about atheists. They don't talk to atheists. They don't care to find out the truth because the truth to them simply doesn't matter. And that came up recently as I was told by a theist that I had blind faith that God doesn't exist. Of course, nothing could be further from the truth, but he didn't care. It didn't matter at all. It was just a coping mechanism from the discomfort of being faced with the absurdity of his own beliefs. He couldn't take it, so he decided to push back, but his efforts were wholly irrational. See, I have no faith, period. I don't believe that gods don't exist. I simply do not believe that they do. I have seen no substantive evidence that would convince me that gods, any gods, actually exist, thus I do not believe in them. But the religious can't figure that out, because to them, everyone has faith. Everyone is just like they are. It's why trying to argue with them about other gods doesn't get you anywhere. I know, I've tried. I've seen other people try. It just never works. You can't say, well, why don't you believe in this other god over there? And hope that they'll come up with some kind of a rational reason. Because they won't. They can't. The reason they don't believe in other gods is because they have blind faith in their own deity, and that deity supposedly says that no other gods are real. Christians reject, say, Hinduism because their God is the only God out there, full stop. The same goes for Muslims and Greek deities. They've never intellectually considered the existence of other gods because, according to their beliefs, they don't have to. Their faith gets in the way of rational thought. Unfortunately, these people simply don't see a problem with the way that they do things. Effectively, what they're saying is, we don't believe in Gamera because we believe in Godzilla. The question of whether Gamera or Godzilla are real in the first place, that just never comes up. It just doesn't matter to them. Godzilla has to be real, and that means that all competing monster pantheons have to be false. It's also why, if you notice, a lot of theists are trying to find out what quote-unquote God that atheists follow, because obviously everyone has to follow a god of some sort or another, even though we don't. They can't imagine not being someone's intellectual slave. We have to be just like they are. We just have to be. And that's why they can't figure out the burden of proof. You will see them tell atheists that we have a burden of proof to prove them wrong. And I'm sorry, but that's not how any of this works. We're not the ones making a positive claim. That's them. They insist that we are, but they're wrong. We are simply pointing out the lack of evidence that they have to back up their claims, and because their beliefs are so entirely unsubstantiated, we do not take any of the nonsense coming out of their mouths seriously. We don't have to prove them wrong. They have to prove themselves right. And they can't. That's the problem. They can't. And they know it. Ultimately, this is all just a rationalization game. If someone ran up to you on the street and claimed that Godzilla was attacking the city, would you take them seriously? Or would you expect them to provide corroboratory evidence for their claim? By rejecting their claim as unproven, I am not making a counterclaim that Godzilla isn't real. I simply have no reason to believe what they're saying. They are making a positive claim about Godzilla. They need to back it up. If they can't, I can and, in fact, rationally must continue not to believe that Godzilla is attacking the city. It is absolutely absurd to do otherwise. But even if we were making a counterclaim, even if we were saying that God or Godzilla or whatever isn't real, that doesn't remove their responsibility to defend their claim with objective evidence and critical thinking. Most theists who try this, they're just trying to shift the burden to someone who doesn't actually have it. They know that they've got nothing intelligent to say, so they're desperately trying to make other people prove them wrong instead of having to prove themselves right. It doesn't matter what the opposition says. You still have to back up your own claims on your own. Then you can worry about what your opposition needs to do once you've completed your own obligations. But you notice they don't want to do that, do they? Because they've got nothing at all to present. I don't know if they haven't figured out that we know this or not, but they're wrong. We are not like you. We are not theists in disguise. We have virtually nothing in common with the religious. We are rational people who don't care about your feelings. We care about your facts. If you have no facts, then you're simply not going to impress us, and you shouldn't be impressed yourselves. We point out the problems with your beliefs, and you assume that means we have beliefs of our own. And we don't. We just don't. If you really want to understand our position, you need to talk to us, not about us, not talk to your echo chamber and assume you understand what we're going to say. Talk to us directly. Ask questions and listen to the answers. Because if you don't, you're just making a fool of yourself. It's why we spend so much time laughing at the religious, because the religious spend so much time earning it. We try to talk to you, and then you run away, and you hide in your safe spaces with your closed comments, and you pretend that you know what's going on, when clearly you haven't got a clue. And then you pretend that we're just like you. And you're wrong. You really ought to do something about that.